I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Ryder Lee. First, I got two films out there in the streaming universe. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and many more. We are booking guests for January. If you have suggestions or you may like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Ryder Lee. He is a filmmaker and producer and host of Raised by Giants podcast. Ryder, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a minute.
It has, and it's wonderful to have you back. It has been a wild few years. You've been a busy dude. We both have two films released, one in the works. A Clockwork Shining was super badass, my friend. Can't wait for the new one. Right now is an amazing time for filmmakers because we can do everything ourselves, including distribution. It's a shit ton of work, but it can be done. You and I are examples of that. And today we're going to talk about your new film in the works, about psychic spies. We're all about this here. Before we get into it, though, remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
I am Ryder Lee. I am a director, podcast host of Raised by Giants. You can find me on YouTube and any and all podcast platforms and on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. Yeah, the psychic spy stuff is really interesting to me. I got interested in it going through the MK Ultra programs. So I found out that the CIA was actually funding the Rockefeller Foundation for behavioral science, which is psychology, and a few of those studies were on gifted people. This was back in the 50s. They were funding work into Duke University, Harvard, and things like that. And that's where things get really weird because MK Ultra also had sub-projects studying gifted people. More specifically, sub-project 83 and sub-project 136, which was dedicated to the research and development of ESP and psychic abilities. There's actually a document on the CIA's website called Hypnosis and Controlled Behavior that says if there's a situation where hypnosis can be applied on a target, individuals, or groups, this is from the CIA, okay, you can guarantee that it will be used. The CIA was also funding SRI International for developmental research into ESP and psychic abilities called remote viewing. The CIA chief at that time, Stansfield Turner, said that the agency found a man who could see what was going on anywhere in the world through his psychic powers. Turner said the CIA scientists and officials would show the man a picture of any place, and he would then describe the activity that was going on there at that time. Seems pretty important thing to have, especially for the CIA at that time.
You said these were going on around the same time as the MK Ultra experiments, or relatively the same time?
Well, arguably MK Ultra could have been started in the 50s or in the 60s. It ran for about 25 to 30 years, officially stopping in 1975. So the studies go, I mean, we have psychic people going back decades and decades and even centuries. You know, they were called shamans. They were, you know, only supposed to be imbued upon the enlightened people, but it's essentially all the same thing. There's different labels to all of this stuff, and remote viewing kind of was an SRI coined term that supposedly came from the Chinese study into remote viewing and psychic abilities in children. So when Stansfield Turner said that they had found this man that could see what was going on anywhere in the world. That man's name was Pat Price. But the CIA cut ties with SRI in 75 when Pat Price suspiciously died. He was found in a hotel room in Vegas. Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff then went to the Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, to try and get funding for SRI through the Air Force. Now, Del Graff worked there and eventually became the operations manager for the DIA Stargate program at Fort Meade, Maryland, later on in around the early 90s, 1990 to 1991. But the Air Force picked up the funding to SRI to continue this investigation into remote viewing and psychic abilities, and ESP. Del Graff put together a small remote viewing unit at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They then received tasking to find a missing Russian airplane that downed somewhere in Africa. Rosemary Smith, which was part of the remote viewing unit at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, this was like an unofficial small unit that Dale Graff had put together. He gave her a map, like a large area map, and said, "Can you find this Tu-22 downed Russian airplane?" And then she put an X on the map where she had seen the visions and the psychic impressions of where she believed that it was. He then turned that into the CIA, and they converted where she put that X on a map into a coordinate. They then went to where she said that she thought that it was, which was in Africa, and then they found the missing airplane exactly where she said that it was. President Jimmy Carter then talked about this mission in an interview in 1995. It's very difficult to find that interview, but it's on my YouTube channel, Raised by Giants, and it will also be in the upcoming documentary Psychic Agent. But the funding by the Air Force stopped to SRI in 1980, and then the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base unofficial unit was disbanded. But Army Intelligence was forming another remote viewing group at Fort Meade called Grill Flame, which was to use psychic abilities with gifted people to collect intelligence data on foreign targets. But then you also have the Monroe Institute, which was founded by Robert Monroe in 1974, that created this technology called HemiSync to induce an out-of-body experience. So this has connections to the DIA Stargate program, because when Grill Flame first opened up, which it changed its name a lot of times, it changed it to Center Lane, Sunstreak, and then it finally landed upon Stargate in 91. Army Intelligence sent their psychics to the Monroe Institute. They paid Robert Monroe $2,000 to see if Robert Monroe's tapes would help the remote viewers be more accurate. But it turns out that being outside of your body while remote viewing is a pretty advanced form of remote. It's very advanced. It's called perfect sight integration, where the viewer can duplicate their physical body and travel in their astral body to anywhere in the world and then collect information.
Now, let me ask you, the HemiSync was allowing the remote viewers to also leave their bodies now, is what you're saying?
Well, that's the thing, is that is the goal with the HemiSync tapes, is to induce an out-of-body experience. But a lot of the remote viewers had already been having out-of-body experiences. Specifically, Angela Ford, she would have out-of-body experiences all the time whenever she was young. Ingo Swann would also have out-of-body experiences due to trauma from being bullied whenever he was younger for being gay. So that's like a part of it. But Ingo Swann had developed this terminology to be able to get outside of your body that was called perfect sight integration, where you could literally go to another area of the world and your body is physically duplicated into an astral body, and then you can feel the environment. It's like it's like remote viewing on steroids is essentially what it would be. You can then affect the environment. You can move things around. Like it's almost like your physical body is also there, but it's not quite your physical body. It's just like a duplicated version of your physical body. But this is also, it really seems to me that trauma induces these types of abilities, and trauma also induces an out of body experience. Like if you go through enough trauma, you're inevitably going to disassociate from your reality. And sometimes, you know how people, whenever they go through trauma, they're like, oh, I seen this from a far distance. It was like I was up in the corner of the room and I was looking down on myself. That's a forced out of body experience through trauma. And with the MK Ultra programs, what they were doing, it seems as if the MK Ultra programs were inadvertently creating gifted individuals, which is that would be, of course, the ones that survived that didn't go catatonic and weren't able to get over the trauma or disassociate. They stayed within their physical body, like a lot of the people at Ravenscrag in Canada, which also the Rockefeller Foundation provided a grant to help found the Allen Memorial Institute, aka Ravenscrag Hospital, that supported Dr. Hugh and Cameron's MK Ultra experiments in upwards of $150,000 a year for 5 years. And then there was also grants that happened after that as well.
Tell us again, who do you have in the film?
All confirmed people within the DIA Army Intelligence Remote Viewing Unit at Fort Meade. So Angela Ford, Dale Graff. Dale Graff was the operations manager, which I was just mentioning, that had the small remote viewing unit at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Lynn Buchanan, which the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats is kind of semi based off of. And then Dr. David Morehouse, which was also in the remote viewing unit at Fort Meade. And then I'll have other people that is also wasn't actually a part of the unit, but was in Air Force, Special Intelligence, and DOD.
Did you get into any other types of applications for this? Maybe assassin work, being used to cause harm in some way remotely?
Yes, I have, and that is that's kind of where the whole thing is kind of.
Oh,
leading.
we won't give away too much then.
Well, with Dr. Hugh and Cameron, he's one of the ones that created the technology of psychic driving. He would record all these sessions with patients, and he would have a patient listen back to one of those tapes, and then he noticed that one of his patients had a visceral reaction to hearing a certain part of this tape. So he started making her listen to this tape over and over and over again, day in and day out for months. And it's pretty soon he was doing this with all of his patients. Now, the people that were experimented on at Ravenscrag ended up getting together and sued the CIA, and they settled out of court for around $800,000. Now, the psychic driving thing is essentially a programming, right? So if you can, there's 3 steps to it. So it's called depatterning. So he would essentially traumatize these people through torture and, just fill in the blanks. Then he would drug them. And this was an array of drugs. See, a lot of people believe that MK Ultra was just about LSD. Oh, they were just doing a little LSD. No, there was over 150 different drugs that were tested on within the MK Ultra program. Some of them including caffeine, amphetamine, antidepressants, antipsychotics, marijuana, like all of it. All of it was essentially tested on. And a lot of people don't know that Sidney Gottlieb, which was the head of the MK Ultra programs, I'm pretty much the only person that's ever brought this up before. He had a brother named David Gottlieb, which was a plant biologist. So it stands to reason that Sidney Gottlieb was probably getting some of these compounds of these drugs from his brother, which was a plant biologist. I don't think that you would do all of these experiments with all these types of drugs and have a brother that's a plant biologist and not utilize what he would be concocting in some sort of CIA designer drug. So with the psychic driving thing, so it's the depatterning. They remove all of your normal thinking patterns, rational thought, cognitive beliefs, and then through traumatization, and then they drug you with an array of drugs, and then they psychically drive you. Now, the psychic driving can be anything. It could be anything. Could be on the looped audio message that he was given, and then if you could take that a step further and put in a TV, right? So you would not only be getting looped audio messages, but you would also be getting visual messages. Now, this isn't something that's official that they were actually doing, but I'm common sense says that it developed, that it turned into something even more. That's just the official one, the looped audio message, right? Well, you could take that a step further, and you could take it to virtual reality, right? You can take a headset, put over the person, have them feeding audio into their brain and also a visual stimulus to make them believe something that didn't even happen, or make them believe something about themselves that wasn't even real, or something that was real and make them believe that it wasn't real. It works both ways. And we know that the military has been using video games to train their soldiers for decades now. They'll use simulations, they'll use video games, they'll take a gun that is just as heavy as a real gun and have them shoot imaginary video game targets. They'll use data simulations to do explosions and tanks and all of that. They've been doing that for a really long time. So it only stands to reason that this is going to develop into something more. And that would be the next step of this MK Ultra program would be to depattern them, right, through trauma, drug them, and then have this stimulus of something on a TV, or even a step further would be virtual reality. And then when you look at our environment and how the world has shaped, over 50% of the people in the United States is on some form of pharmaceutical medication.
Yeah.
We are constantly being traumatized through the media and these events that are happening around us all the time. And then we're being psychically driven through the TV, through social media, through programming to get the same talking points over and over and over again. I mean, there's this clip by George Bush that is like, George Bush Jr. I was like, I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it a bunch of times, because you got to repeat it several times for them to really drive home the narrative, to really catapult the propaganda.
Yeah.
All right, so that's obviously a technique that has carried over from these MK Ultra programs, is just putting the same thing up on the screen over and over and over and over again, regardless if it's real or not. If you can make people believe that it's real, it doesn't matter if it actually is or not, as long as the perception is there that it is. Now,
I wanted to ask you, I don't want to get too far away from the MK Ultra, but did you look at all into the creation of alternate personalities, splitting of the consciousness to different personalities, things of that nature?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to do that. I mean, was known as multiple personality disorder, but now is dissociative identity disorder is the modern term for it. And I do believe that it is possible to do, but I don't believe that it can be done to everyone. Right? If you had 100 people, maybe 10 of them or 5 of them this could be done to.
But this is another trauma-based experiment that they were putting people through severe trauma to achieve this, right?
Yeah, and that gets into the assassin territory and programming people. I mean, the MK Ultra programs were wild, dude. They were doing all kinds of wild. They had so many wild thoughts and crazy ideas.
Yeah.
There was one that was to during um, World War II was to paint a bunch of foxes with radioactive material and throw them off the ship of the coast of Japan, and that the Japanese would see this as like an omen or a sign from the gods, and that they would surrender. Like
Yeah.
wild stuff. They were going to poison the president of Cuba at that time. What was his name?
Castro.
The guy that, yeah, Fidel Castro. They were going to poison Fidel Castro with put something in his cigars to poison him. They were going to put some things in his shoes that would make him lose his hair. Like
Wild stuff.
just wild stuff. But there was this book that was written in 1978 by Walter H. Ballard, which was called Operation Mind Control. That really exposed the entire alien and abduction phenomenon, where the military would get these kids to dress up as gray aliens, and the military would abduct their target, the said individuals, and the kid would then act as aliens, and they would have the set all made up, and then they would use these drugs and this weapon that was called a stun gun, which would act as like a memory suppressor. So then later on, when the said individual it would make them like black out, right? It would make them like kind of erase the thought in the memory from their head. And then, years later, or maybe a little bit of time later, it would be like, oh man, I got some missing time. Something really strange must have happened. Then these memories will start kind of coming back to them of this experience that they had with these aliens. Okay, but they were really just kids dressed up in gray alien outfits.
I can only imagine where things like that have progressed to in our modern age, but that's a whole other show. So how long were they running these psychic spy programs?
Well, if you count it from the time that they started funding SRI, the CIA funding SRI was from 1972. But if you're not, then it would be 78 whenever the Army first started implementing the remote viewing stuff into Army intelligence at Fort Meade, which was Grill Flame. But then they shut down that program, and then they turned it into Sunstreak and Center Lane, and then it eventually settled on Stargate. So officially, Army intelligence had a program from 78 and then it got transferred to the DIA, and became a DIA under the umbrella of the DoD Special Access Program in 85. And then it ran for 10 more years under the DIA and the DoD to 1995.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on how they're integrating it, other than what you said earlier, obviously, with the drugs, social media, and virtual reality, basically, that we live in? Seem to have been experimentation to get us to a certain point and beyond, but any thoughts on where else these programs might have been integrated into?
Well, I mean, every facet of our existence has essentially been turned into some sort of MK Ultra style program, style psyop, right? Now, when you talk about the type of Stranger Thing aspect of this, because people are probably wondering, oh well, this is interesting, this is cool, but where does the experimentation on kids come in, right? Well, we know that there were these programs set up as teen behavioral modification schools. okay, in Utah, some in upstate New York, okay, where kids would literally be abducted from their home, where their parents would pay this company to come and abduct their kid, but handcuff them, blindfold them, throw them in the back of a SUV, sometimes on an airplane, a private airplane, and fly them wherever this facility was. Okay, so some of those first ones started in Utah, and then it kind of spread out all over the United States and into Arizona and into New York. One of those is called Ivy Ridge in New York. So, and a lot of the people that were involved in these teen behavioral health modification schools describe them as a form of MK Ultra. Some of the exact same techniques that were used on them are the same types of techniques that you can read about in these MK Ultra documents, the 149 subprojects of MK Ultra. Now, if you get into the Twilight Learner program, which was developed by a psychiatrist named Thomas H. Budinsky, it was a neurofeedback program which was started in Colorado, which was dubbed Pink Noise to supposedly help produce relaxation, facilitate learning. And this one is kind of a big one, which is to alter mental states. Kind of sounds similar to the Monroe Institute, right? The Twilight Learner program is referred to as a sleep state suggestion experiments. Now, it's possible that the tapes that Thomas Budinsky used was some of the tapes that the Monroe Institute was also using. I'm still doing research into this, but I know somebody that was a part of the Twilight Learner program in Colorado that has some of these tapes.
Wow.
She can't play them yet because she doesn't have a cassette tape recorder. But I do know someone that has these tapes, so I'm trying to figure out a way to play these tapes to see if they are any way connected to the Monroe Institute gateway tapes, because this is a very important connection. Because there's the school gate programs, which were gifted individuals, public school programs, right? And there's also the gateway program. So and then there's the Stargate program. So all this stuff gets very convoluted and kind of all mixed together because it all has gate at the end.
Bro, have you seen Wayward Pines on Netflix?
Yes.
The abducting of kids, bringing them to this experimental school. That's exactly what that show was about.
It's exactly what the show is about. And there's also another show called The Institute on MGM Plus. It's a show that's based off of Stephen King's book, The Institute, where kids are abducted out of their home, taken to this facility because they have psychic abilities and psychic powers.
That is crazy, man.
Which is a really good show. I highly recommend it. And when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, this is basically my documentary in a nutshell. I mean, this is a, Hollywood version of what I 100% believe it was happening on some levels. Yeah. So you have the Twilight Learner program, which Thomas H. Budinsky initially worked as an aerospace engineer in Southern California, including working on a top secret classified projects at Area 51.
Interesting.
On the SR-71 Blackbird, which is so interesting. It's a tidbit of information how a lot of these guys always seem to work for some sort of aerospace company and then switch into psychology and experimentation on the human mind.
Yeah.
But you have the GATE programs in school. Now, this is how it's connected to the Monroe Institute gateway tapes, because there's been this flurry of online activity around the GATE programs because people are thinking back to them and thinking, oh, that was kind of freaking weird. Okay, I was being pulled out of class. I was asked to do these really strange things like mess with ropes, mess with blocks. There was a guy that was telling me to say what's on the flashcard without having to see what's on the flashcard. I had these really weird, strange hearing tests. They would do really weird, strange vision tests, and this would happen periodically through my upbringing in public school. And what's triggering a lot of these people is this clip of this hearing test that was done, and a lot of people remember this, which was, you should be hearing my voice in your right ear. And that's triggering a lot of people to bring back this memory of these hearing tests that was done in public school. Now, it turns out that that tape is the Monroe Institute Gateway tapes.
Whoa. Crazy.
So how did the Monroe Institute Gateway tapes end up in public school, and why did they end up in public school? And why were they using this as an experiment on children in the 70s, the late 70s, 80s, and 90s?
That is super interesting, man.
And they've also, a lot of people have said that they were told to drink some
pink drink
type of substance. Pink drink, yellow drink, and depending on where they were and where they lived and what state that they were in, they were told it was for a different reason. Not everybody got the same reason as to why they needed to ingest this liquid. Some people, it was told that it's for that it was vitamins. Other people were told that it was vaccines. Other people were told that it was asthma medication.
Yeah, man.
You know, and then some of the programs too, depending on where you lived in the United States, depended on what the excuse was for why your kid needed to be a part of the program. Some of them were, oh, he's a genius. He needs, or they need, or the girl or whoever it is, they're a genius. They need to be put inside of a special type of program for advanced learning kids. Other people, it was, he's an unruly child. He has ADHD. He has all these problems. He can't sit still. He needs to be put in a special class. So if you were in California during this period of time, you would probably be told, oh, well, your kid needs special attention because he's he's very smart. He's scoring very high on a lot of these tests. We need to put him into a special class. He needs to be put into, and the parents were like, okay, yes, do it. Do it, whatever. And then if you were in, I don't know, Ohio or Pennsylvania or someplace northern East Coast, it would more likely that it would be your kid is unruly, your kid can't sit still, he's got problems, he's being disruptive in class, he needs to be put into a special class to where with other kids that are like him. And the parents are like, yes, put him in. So they're using different techniques and different reasons for why the kids need to be put into a gifted classroom, depending on what location you live in during that time.
Damn.
And these ran from, they had to have started in the late 70s. In through the 80s and probably ended in the late 90s. And a lot of people remember these programs. They remember them very vividly. Now, there is a possibility that it didn't have anything to do with psychic abilities. There is a possibility that it had something to do with recruitment, that it had to do with putting people in positions of power.
I'm sure it's multi-layered. all of these operations seem to have multiple purposes going on at one time.
Well, a lot of people that I have talked to personally that kind of finished out these types of programs, like the gift to school gate programs, or MGM, mentally gifted minds. That's what it was known as in California. They all ended up in some form of military service.
Really?
I've talked to some people that knew some family members that were a part of these programs that are head writers for the New York Post, or you know what I mean? Like it's really
could be
strange.
Some kind of grooming program. It makes me wonder if they're still doing this now with the access of technology, and like you were saying earlier, the ability to get kids hooked on prescriptions and constantly be in a state where they are susceptible to hypnosis through technology now, instead of having to actually bring the kid to a specific class or kidnap them anymore. It may be just easier to access through this stuff.
Yeah, 100% easily access through technology and meet the people, the kids where they are online, just like the most recent Rockefeller collaboration with famous influencer Mr. Beast. That's what they talked about, is to help children.
Really?
Online. Yeah, we need to meet the kids where they are, and where they are is online. So it's definitely a technology-based way now, and I really don't think, except in maybe a special scenario or a special case, that they would even need to use a psychic anymore. Because everything is tracked online. Everybody has a phone. You can know the location of where anybody is at any given moment. Track their IP address, you know exactly where they are.
No.
You know, there's Pegasus software that all you literally need to do is have the person's phone number, and you could hack whatever. You can literally have a duplicate copy of their phone, exactly what they're doing every single day on your computer. So the tracking and the data collection no longer needs to be done through a psychic individual.
Yeah.
It's not just technology.
I want to get your thoughts on some of the things that I've heard over the years that may be associated with these remote viewers or psychic spies. Many have said that when you are out of body or you're remote viewing, that there may be some sort of psychic block or someone else that is out in the astral waiting for people to stop them from accessing certain information, certain areas. Do you think that's true?
I mean, it could be true in a sense, but hiring people to do that seems kind of silly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's hire these military astral travel people to sit, because you can't really be doing this while you're out just like doing everyday normal life. Like, you can't be outside of your body while you're washing the dishes. Like, you have to be in a certain meditative state, in a certain deep consciousness level that allows you to get outside of your body.
Yeah.
And then to be able to even control that, to know how to control to get outside of your body, is very difficult to do. I don't think that anybody can actually do it verbatim every single time that they try. It's normally something that just kind of happens. Now, there are ways to try and induce it. You can try and do breath work really late at night like when your melatonin is most highest in your brain, you might be able to get outside of your body doing it that way. But it's not something that you can just lay down and expect to immediately get outside of your body. It's just not the way that it works. So I highly doubt it. It seems like that if people are saying that that's what's going on now, there are like ways to block remote viewing through certain materials. I believe Uri Geller has talked about how the CIA has, or some intelligence agency or the military has some sort of psychic energetic blocking room, to where that because they were afraid that the Soviets were spying on them, and that they were getting their intelligence data leaked. So then they created this room where no psychic could possibly get into. That's just rumor. I don't know if that's true or not, but I highly doubt that it would really be possible.
You mentioned Uri Geller and Ingo Swann. In recent years, they have been part of the quote-unquote UFO disclosure movement. You hear about remote viewing aliens on the moon and extraterrestrials. They seem to be supporting this UFO narrative. Of course, they were working with the CIA, so how much trust can you put into that, right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe a lot of the things that Uri Geller says. But I do believe him on one thing, which I think is a really important thing. When he talked to Russell Targ on the documentary Third Eye Spies, and he said that in a roundabout way that Pat Price didn't die. That he wasn't murdered, and that his death was essentially faked. And then he was taken into this black budget underground program that the CIA was doing. Because it's just a coincidence that after Pat Price died, even though SRI had other psychics such as Ingo Swann and Hella Hammond and a few others, whenever Pat died, the CIA was almost immediate, like, oh yeah, we don't care anymore. We're out of this. Cut the funding to SRI. Yeah. The only reason that you would do that is if you already had another program, or you had, or that you had the individual, the best individual for the job already. Because then you wouldn't need to fund them searching and looking and studies and all that for another thing if you already have the best guy that can already do it. Like the CIA said back whenever in the early 70s that they have someone that could see anything, anywhere. All they need to do is show them a picture of that thing. So if they already have him, there's no point in continuing funding for anybody else.
Right. So
that's what I 100% believe happened, because there's so many really strange, which is all going to be in the documentary as well. There's a lot of very strange things that surrounded Pat Price's death. There's very strange things, like he called his family members before the day before that he was found dead in the hotel room and gave them very cryptic goodbyes. He took out a very large life insurance policy right before he died. Whenever he was, the family wasn't informed of his death until he was already cremated.
Wow, interesting.
They'd already cremated the man before they ever called his wife and called his family to say that he was dead. Whenever he died, a man came in with what could be described as Men in Black, came in with briefcases and told everyone to clear out of the clear out of the building, that they had it under control.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
And so there's a really, and then mix that with what Uri Geller was saying, that they do not kill people that lay golden eggs.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Not to give away too much more from the film, but is there anything else that we didn't cover yet that you can give the audience a little sneak peek about?
Well, there's going to be a lot of, the documentary is going to run about an hour and 40 minutes.
Nice.
That it's going to cover a lot of information really quickly. The history of the remote viewing unit. It's going to get into the GATE programs. It's going to get into the Monroe Institute gateway tapes, because that's another thing. Whenever Army intelligence sent the Army personnel to the Monroe Institute to study under Robert Monroe to see if being outside of the body could increase or make the remote viewing more accurate or the psychic abilities more accurate, they also brought those tapes back to Fort Meade, Maryland. So they had access to those tapes. And according to Lynn Buchanan and some other people that were actually there, said that they would use those tapes to like cool down. And like after a remote viewing session to like relax and like gather their thoughts back into it. Now, I don't want people getting the wrong impression of remote viewing and how remote viewing works. It's not 100% accurate. It's never been 100% accurate. And sometimes the people that are seeing these things aren't really even seeing them. They're getting impressions. Okay, so how it would work is they would get into the relaxed state. They would get into their, what could be considered a meditative state. Then they'll get a piece of paper and a pen, and then they will be assigned the coordinate. I mean, there's different ways of remote viewing. There's extended remote viewing, coordinate remote viewing, long range remote viewing. There's many different ways to do it. But with coordinate remote viewing, they would be assigned the target. The person that is giving the target to the individual is supposed to be blind to the target. Because if they're not blind to the target, then they can then influence the target. So the person that's assigning the target essentially has to imbue what the target is onto the coordinate. The coordinate literally does not matter. The coordinate isn't a real coordinate. It's a series of numbers.
Yeah.
So the person that's assigning the target has to be highly trained in order to not subliminally get things mixed up with the coordinate and then imbue things that aren't real and create their perception so that the remote viewer can't see the thing that they're supposed to be seeing.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated and complex process when you get into the military remote viewing stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not as easy as sitting down and looking at a picture and then remote viewing the picture.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, if you're doing that, then you're just using your imagination. You're just seeing things that you want to see. That's the whole point of remote viewing, is to be blind to the target, because then the information and the things that you see is pure. Because if you know what it is that you're supposed to be viewing, then that gets subliminal messages into your brain to trick your brain into seeing what you think that you should see.
Makes sense.
So you need to be blind. The person that's giving you the target needs to be blind. So then there has to be a middleman in between there. So the person that assigns the target and the person that gives the target has to be different people. And then you sit down, and then you take your pen and your piece of paper, and then you view you get impressions of what you think that it is, and then you draw on a piece of paper and any words or any thoughts that come to mind on the piece of paper. That's what these military remote viewing sessions were, and that's how they operated, and that's how they worked. And I think that with social media and these self-proclaimed remote viewers and self-proclaimed psychics have the wrong impression or the wrong idea of how remote viewing is. There's a difference between being remote viewing and being psychic. They're two separate things. If you can look at a picture and see what's going on currently at that place based off of that picture, that means you're psychic. That's basically what Pat Price was. Pat Price was a very powerful psychic. Now you can argue that he was remote viewing or whatever. That's what they would call it. It would be remote viewing. But if you take a picture and you can describe what's going on at that location, you are a psychic. You're not a remote viewer. Remote viewing is a completely separate protocol. There's a protocol to remote viewing.
Yeah.
So people are getting these things mixed up, thinking that they're remote viewing when they're not actually remote viewing. They're literally sitting down and using their imagination to come up with what their brain believes might possibly be going on at that location.
Now, I know we went over the possibility of remote assassins, but do you know if they were also able to, say, affect the environment of what they were trying to remote view in any way?
Many experiments of that. Ingo Swann would do that on many occasions. That's one of the things that he did that got the military and the CIA interested in the phenomenon. He would be able to remotely affect the environment and move things around that he wasn't even near. It's called remote perturbation. That's the official term, which would translate to something like remote telekinesis, to where you can move an object that is nowhere near you or around you.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the Russians were also into remote perturbation, remote influence. Believe personally that it is possible to do it. You can remotely, which then gives a whole new definition to, haunted activity and spirits and ghosts. Maybe it's not even ghosts. Maybe it's not even spirits, dude. Maybe it's literally a living person that's remote viewing you and affecting your environment.
Well, right on, man. I can't wait for this film. Last few minutes, I know you've done some great work in calling out BS UFO narratives, people who are involved that are spreading disinformation, some of the current happenings that tend to involve UFOs, or the narrative is pushed towards a UFO or an extraterrestrial. But as far as where we're at now, we have Atlas, more congressional hearings that pop up here and there. What are your thoughts on the state of quote-unquote disclosure?
Oh man, honestly, I haven't really been paying too much attention. I kind of left that whole thing because it's almost like when you're on to something too soon, it almost feels like that you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like you get attacked by all kinds of people. You get, hate comments, hate messages, and all kinds of nonsense and stupid ass, ridiculous emails. Basically telling you that you're a propagandist and that you're working for the government to cover up the UFOs and that you're, it's just ridiculous, dude. So that's what it feels like when and I'm not the only one that's experienced that. Several people have experienced that throughout, just in the past, 10 years. So often being too soon on a topic often feels like that you're wrong about the topic. And I felt like that I was really soon.
Well, it was soon, but you were
And
definitely onto something. I agree with much of your thoughts on the matter. We've been in a very interesting place when it comes to the narratives that they're trying to push forward. And like I said, you were doing a great job calling that out, and I get it. People don't respond well to things that they're not ready to let go of yet.
I mean, it's obviously an agenda, and where I think that it's kind of heading is with AI. I think that AI is going to be responsible for so much, and they're going to pin a lot of things on
Yeah.
AI. I mean, I know right now that they're already talking about how that they want to, what's that called, whenever you like pardon, that you would pardon all of these different companies and been holding all the secrets to the UFO
Oh.
technology. We're going to pardon them. We're not going to hold them responsible for whenever all this information comes out. I think that it's going to be used as an excuse for defense in the name of a invisible boogeyman, just like we've been led to believe the invisible boogeyman. It's always been an invisible boogeyman. It's always been that thing that no one can see, no one really has firsthand knowledge of, that it's, just happening, and we need all this money to help protect you from the invisible boogeyman. So I do 100% believe that it's going to be used as a military budget to funnel more money into to then protect us from the aliens, right?
Man, I think of
It's gonna
all
be
those YouTubers that for years their content was about presenting video evidence. We're at a point now where, unfortunately, it's gotten to look too real, and in many instances, it's extremely difficult to tell the difference, and that's only going to get better. So, seems like the era of any video evidence may be dead.
It really is. And when you look at the history of this stuff, and you, just like what I mentioned with the man who wrote the book Operation Mind Control, where the military would get these kids to dress up in gray alien costumes and abduct people and make them believe that they had been abducted by aliens. They took them to some kind of area that had a background set that made them believe that they were on a spaceship and stuff like that. If they're willing to go that far to pull something off like that, if they're willing to go as far as to break into Paul Benowitz's house in the early 80s to replace his computer with an NSA modified computer to make him believe that he's in contact with aliens while the NSA is posted up across the street beaming signals into his house.
Oh, man.
Okay. If they're going to go that
So
far,
diabolical.
what else are they willing to do?
Man. Have you read the book Camelio? Heard about this story? Invisible people that were that were sent to this guy's house. If they were doing shit like that back then, who knows what they've got going on now? And you have to question everything, even paranormal phenomena. We live in wild times, brother. Before I let you go, remind the audience where they can find out more about you again.
You can find me on YouTube, any and all podcast platforms, Forbidden Knowledge News Network, Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, and you can watch my documentaries JFKX and Clockwork Shining on Amazon Prime Video, Tubi TV. And thanks for having me on, and be looking forward to my new documentary, Psychic Agent, Real Life Stranger Things, which is hopefully going to be released soon, which will cover everything that me and Chris talked about here today and much, much more. Thank you very much.
Right on, man. Can't wait for that to come out. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order.